Photography are in the same sense documentative artifacts when the effectively emphasized bother me. It's a confrontation, not by the subjects photographed, but from the medium in which it's presented. To me, all photography is a travesty. The lens of a camera finds something as is, capturing the real and producing it as something unreal, a static temporality only found in alien technology. It urges the audience to watch in horror of a time that once was, of the seriousness, the acting, the staging, in its uninhabited form, constantly challenging the viewers far removed from any sense of reliability. This concerns memory, images, and the failure of introspection.
I'm never gonna watch Jav again, or I know.
I turned it off and tried switching to Kingdom Hearts instead.
Puis, comme maintenant, hein, Lamarre rôle là.
It looks like Nagi, strike witches, and Sora no Oto. How the hell do you recognize that Sora no Oto?
I've been thinking a lot about where I am, where I'll go, and what already has been. It's been a common topic between me and my therapist, trying to find a link that triggers certain defense mechanisms and uncontrollable emotions. She once told me, "When was the last time you had fun?" It was a question I thought was kind of silly, since I don't consider fun to be the goal in any of my quotidian projects. But I thought about it and showed her some videos from my phone. The date read July 3rd, 2023, and the video playing was Rina Hamu grabbing one of the fans' hands during one of her halftime interludes. Without realizing it, a smile appeared on my face, knowing that this is now a treasured memory and that I have footage of it to remind me that it once was. She wondered how I was so quick to answer her question, and I simply told her, I think about this a lot. I think about the places I've lived, the scenery where I've read certain books, places I've eaten alone, roommates I've had, and even the layout of my old workplaces. It takes some time for me, and I'm unreasonably whiny wherever I am. But eventually I think about it fondly, simply because time has passed and I'm now left to correlate the details by my lonesome. I've refrained from talking about anything too closely related to myself, but I'll talk about that date I mentioned. From July 2nd to the 5th, I was in LA for Anime Expo, the largest anime centric convention in America. I didn't know we had them, but I booked a hotel, a capsule hotel, so I'd have more money to spend at the convention. If I recall, I think I spent about $4,000. Um, I'm not too sure where it's all at now, but money's an afterthought since this is one of the first times I went somewhere so far alone on my own dime. You see, I grew up as a Jehovah Witness. Following Jehovah Witness tradition, we didn't spend much time out of the faith. This is where I'll keep the details to myself. There's countless books and videos, films, and vlogs with detailed accounts of this group, which are probably more detailed than anything I'd be willing to say. Even then, with my goal of having a good time, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was trapped by something other than the very obvious panopticon my faith instilled in me. There was something lurking in between my veins, the grandest of fears. The fear that I wasn't as interested in whatever it is as I thought. The Halcyon days of mandatory school were missing something. There were no teenage investigation teams, no alien princess transfer students, no groups of characters with specific designs. There was no energy flash. It's not like I seriously thought that I would be awakened by some transcendental film. I was well aware how I might encounter something like invention. You see, I've always felt like there's something fundamental missing in my person, like a text with cut out pages. I'm well aware that we, as humans, cannot truly understand ourselves, but I still wonder what that feeling was. I think then, and I think now, that there isn't anything there. No disdain nor pleasure in like a quantitative fashion. Um, but despite this, I look on it fondly. Retroactively, I try to fill in this gap, as it was the first time I did something for myself. What is there to say about conventions? You stand around a lot, in lines and then in more lines. You spend a ton of money to get there, then spend more money. Uh, at, you spend a lot of money to even get there, then you spend more money at shops and whatnot because panels are fading away. I would say a lot of it is trying to recapture a sense of community you'd find in memorabilia of the past, a golden age of sorts. That golden age is retrograde, something to look back on whether or not you were there to fill the mass genealogical shifts that brought about a so-called utopic era. A compressed dot of affect, diaphoric and not, of something you missed out on, even if you know there will never be a return. So instead, the spirit of the time lives on through the art produced, closer to a time than we are. Genshiken, for example, creates an ideal to strive for with the vitality of the community, the beauty of friendships with shared interests. The Neo Arcadia magazines, the Animericas, the Otaku USAs, all of their archive volumes hold photos of a scene that once existed, a time alien to us, even if it persists in one's memory. It no longer holds without the photograph. What remains is hard to put my finger on. History works in mysterious ways, and I find myself attempting a strange impulse to reiterate them, to experiment with new levels of performativity, to see if anything of interest is made in the process. But also, I know both me and my therapist understand that performance is all that's left in an age where authenticity is dead, which I think is good for all of us. Otaku is dead, long live the otaku, and so on. In further consideration, my past has a lot to do with the way I intersect with the world. I was a very sheltered child, only surrounded by children of a similar age, but with wholly differing interests. It's not my fault nor theirs. I grew up with the same things I surround myself with today. People of interest are still hard to come by. As I got older, I figured out what I wanted to do in the future. All there was were dreams of consumptions, and my speed was directed at that shiny ideal. I worked and toiled simply to pay rent and spend money on anime figures. Even my accounting studies were marked for otaku activities, if only mediated by the image of a Japanese salaryman sleeping on a subway. Expectedly, I wasn't surprised by the outside world. It wasn't even my first time there, of course, but it was the first time I came so far out on my own volition. I wasn't sure what I was looking at, where I was going, or what I was even doing. What I felt then was less than excitement, but an acceptance of an experience I have for the future. Something happened there, an event, in the Delusian sense, but all I can offer are approximations, stories that fail to capture what continues to resonate. During the convention, I did what I could to recount the ideals I once believed in by replicating the method of Madarame, spending money with no avail to safety, budget, and even debt. I spoke at random people who seemed approachable. I took pictures of cosplayers, occasionally putting myself in a frame with them. I scoped out events, the panels, the shows, the venues, and likely saw each and every single place that my schedule would allow me to. But again, something brushed upon my shoulder, something unempirical, immaterial, something I distrust, and something I continue to confront as I move ahead. The sudden disillusionment with the otaku at the symbolic level. The commodities are obviously fetishistic in more ways than one, but I can see that their material power begins to dissipate. What could have replaced this drive? That I am still unsure of. Following the third remove, it was fine. I always say that, but that's it. The memory triumphs any regard during its moment. A montage of images says more than I'm willing to. The only thing I remember with fervence are the events after the second day of the convention, the night after the party. In a Magra-styled club, BPM 15Q came down to LA. I wasn't aware of this until the panelists of the Idol panel mentioned it after playing a Fruit Zipper song. I remember looking around to see if anyone else was excited, but it seemed like they were already familiar with this news, or they just weren't interested in the group in the first place. I ended up buying the VIP tickets and figured out how to get there myself. The event was at an old industrial building, seemingly repurposed for the sake of the dance floor. The building itself was surrounded by the poorest section of Los Angeles, Skid Row. You know, there's a funny little photo one of the rave goers took, a tweet that read, "Welcome to Los Angeles," with a dumpster bin lit on fire on a trash-filled street at the dead of night. I dislike going into detail, again, despite everything I've said here, but I remember. I remember this event, the brightest. And there's a fading line, that blurb of excitement that I continue to chase today. I wonder where it is, if it went anywhere, or if I just need more SSRIs. I had a lot of fun.
You haven't mentioned anyone by name.
There's no one to mention.
Not even from before?
There's no one from before.
What about next time?
You cut it out.
So they like transfer the textures.
Yeah. Again, they still sell them. So if you go look at what is there? I think there's a Kinokuniya down in J-Town.
And you could like see the stuff they use for
Yeah,
it.
they don't sell as much of a wide range anymore because most people don't do physical.
It's like digital, all digital, right?
Yeah, but if you say do Clip Studio, they have digital versions of it.
Yeah.
You can see what they do.
I do have that program, but I've never used it. I was wanted to.
It's far superior to like say Photoshop or something.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it. But my old ass used to cut them out by hand.
Really?
Yeah.
Dang.
So any of the black and white little texture, if you look close, you'll see like little dots of varying distances.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at. Okay, screen sounds right.
That's Nighthawks by Edward Hopper, right? What does that have to do with anything? It has a lot to do with emotion, that feeling of loneliness. There are hundreds of paintings about loneliness. Why choose this one? Nighthawks is specific. A homegrown depressive malaise in modernity. The painting positions the viewer outside on a quiet urban street, viewing a group of people in a diner, all of them visible through the glass. No one in the painting is together. No touching, no sharing in each other's warmth. They're all isolated from one another. But even then, the spectator cannot help but imagine themselves in the uncaring street. Perhaps you feel like you're missing something, even among the lonely crowd. Missing something is right, but I wouldn't say that the crowd necessarily invokes that emptiness. Everybody's lonely. We all feel lonely sometimes. The world is too big for us. It's watching over crowds of people on their mandatory paid vacations. It's hard to imagine you'd enjoy it. I've been alone for a long time. I can't imagine any other way of living. How long would that be? I can't give you an estimate. Try. Longer than when I first moved out. Maybe as long as my exception at birth. But you've been a part of a religion for so long. It's hard to imagine you felt alone during those moments, doing ministry work and eating with your brothers and sisters. You no doubt love them and cherish those moments, even despite their meager words. As time passes, I forget all of their names. Maybe I choose to recontextualize my solitude now, as if it were always the case. The isolation is a story you tell yourself. Stories are easier to understand than the messy tides of real history. It's natural to think this. Formulate a node of an event and categorize it as such. Personal growth, career movements, events of hatred. There's use in simple formulas. It allows me to ground myself to something linear. It's easier than just letting go. But even these formulas are constructed by these experiences, material conditions you might like to say, meaning that it is nonetheless tainted by an apparatus. More like a machine than an apparatus. You're making a distinction. They're different. Apparatus theory positions the camera and spectator ideologically. A machine escapes the technical determinism of an apparatus, producing intervals in movement, planes for becoming. Technological determination and technological determinism are not the same. Technology changes, and so must our suppositions toward them. You prefer to think of yourself as part of a machine rather than subject to an apparatus. It's not a mere preference. They're different. The apparatus would mean I'm determined. The machine means there's production, even if I'm implicated. The machine? The anime machine, perhaps? Yes. Lamarre argues that you can't separate material specificity from material conditions. The technical operations of anime and the historical formations of modernity, they're inseparable. This is true. Animation-specific techniques engage with modernity. You can't understand one without the other. Then apply it to yourself. Your specific history, the JW background, the psych visits, your particular patterns, and the general conditions, capitalism, digital networks, otaku infrastructure. Inseparable. It's a way to bring myself closer to my perceived audience. Personal history makes for easier intimacy. But you oscillate between both registers like a madman. When I point to your choices, you invoke conditions. When I point to conditions, you retreat to personal history. The oscillation is both rhetorical and ontological. I keep them both close to home. You can't construct a theory of how Otaku no Video produces a twofold fantasy without recognizing the immense history of the staff. We're getting off track. What were you saying again? About what? Your isolation. I'm sure you had something you wanted to say. Right. I've been in and out of psych my whole life. Something intrinsic to my person. Like I was born naked in front of an audience without an act. First, there were bursts of anger, then delightful punishment, and then psych is one thing. What about therapy? I've tried it. I didn't like it very much. They adhered to a lot of the neoliberalist ideas of health and productivity. I've always felt like I was more or less fine with myself. Fine, you say. The diagnosis doesn't help anyways. Maybe it'd be easier to recognize and treat, but I wonder if I can commit to the future with PTSD or MDD and the like. I doubt that your actual daily activities would change. It doesn't help that what you enjoy doing in a normal state of mind already looks like a person very much in duress. You'll decline the invitation in order to spend more time maxing from how I walk, the activities if someone even sees you outside. I make sure to avoid people. My photography shows this quality. I attend events willingly but keep to myself. I avoid eye contact. I walk fast. I don't mind going out. I quite like the sunshine and rain, but I'm complicit in mistaking that I control exactly how I grow. Seeking isolation will bring me where I want to be, and being with people isn't to your taste. Sometimes I'll drink when I'm in groups or when I'm alone, but I can never get drunk. Another painting? Gerhard Richter. I saw his paintings at an art museum some time ago. It was quite the experience, so I looked into him a bit. A strange artist. Despite living through the Nazi regime and studying in Dresden, he rejects an overtly political agenda. He depicts his uncle here in an SS uniform, but later moves to capitalist realism. The eternal human dilemma. Revolutionize and fail. Terror on both ends. Catastrophes based on ideology. He paints them, no doubt, even with the thesis of his work, that of meaning and ideology on a canvas. Go back to Uncle Rudi for a moment. Tell me what you see. An awkward man standing in a uniform unbefitting of his stature. It's framed casually like a family photograph, but it's hard to tell the relation this image has to whoever took it. It actually makes me a bit sad. Uncle Rudi would soon die after this image has been taken. Again, dying because of that eternal human dilemma. And Richter paints him blurred. You know what the photograph is, but you can't see it clearly. Cannot look away, cannot see properly. The philosophy of shame. Yours, too. That's the ethos, isn't it? The worried notes of an insecure person trying to find something to their taste, scared of what they don't know, disgusted by what they have. That's why I started writing. A creative endeavor. I want something to live for. There's always more reasons for something.
Who are you talking to?
It doesn't matter.
This is true. It doesn't matter. The other is produced by movement alone.
I understand this.
Do you miss the past?
Of course. I think about it every day.
Even though you just said things need to end?
Especially because of that.
That must be exhausting. Oh well.
That's a good song.
Yeah, this is insane.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
Hey, nice seeing you here. Did you get my message? No, it wasn't anything important. I just said I was at the corner sitting on the couch, but you're here anyway, so it works out. To be honest, I only came out here because I heard YX2 and Chorus K would be here, so I'm waiting for their sets. You want to talk while we wait for the main show to begin? The main show, of course, being, you know, the big names here. So, you know Mark Fisher, that capitalist realism guy? I think he's onto something too. I'm not really huge on the detractors talking badly about his writing. You know, you gotta read his journals and blog posts. That's where the real meat is. But you know, he wrote about raves in the 90s too. I know this isn't really a rave, but let's not get into semantics here. There's still music playing. So like, he talked about this idea, quote unquote, that the death of the rave and stuff. I don't really agree with the whole like Berardi Fisher thing about the slow cancellation of the future, since like, well, the world's such a crazy place, you know? I'd say it's more like the world's a giant highway with a bunch of turns, and our current Geist is just crashing at every stop in the most violent way possible. But anyways, he had this idea that the rave is like this moment of collective joy. That idea is against individualism, you know, like kind of like sitting and staring at your phone in a group of people. Yeah, that's a thing he calls, like, I guess, psychic privatization. He has a quote directly about that too, about phones. It's MDMA. It's against MDMA ecstasy, and it's all about like smartphone addiction, hedonism, whatever. It's a whole thing. I forgot exactly what he says, but you know, kind of ties into his larger project, acid communism. One of his ideas kind of connects with the whole obsession with imagining new futures, you know, like all those theorists and I guess the contemporary sense love that sort of idea. That's what there's so many manifestos and text about. But you know, the rave is just another illustration to get to that point with the radically other. You know, that's like there's not a lot you could really say with like accelerationism, other than you know, it's a study of capital and I guess the other, the alien, you know, all that stuff, phenomena. Don't quote me on any of this. Now, I'm not really sure how to take it, but you know, he was totally against smartphone addiction to like, and I mean, like, dude, the dude right next to us, he's like playing Clash Royale at the rave, just kind of sitting there and playing it. He was talking to me about it too, and I was just like, no, I don't play, but you know, I haven't seen anyone else like play this in like so long. How's it been? Oh, I mean, that's good to hear. I don't know. It's a hard question if you like direct it back at me, and I can't just say like fine, quote unquote. Plus we're outside and stuff, so it's fine to be open, right? To be honest, I come to these sorts of events a lot. It feels like there's something I'm missing that another hit will get me there. Chasing the dragon. You know that phrase, right? It's like it's all about the base and bodies and forgetting yourself. I kind of have trouble doing that. My doctor said I'm depressed, and depression is inherently neurotic, so you know, I guess that makes sense. The camera. Oh, I guess I do have this weird habit. I like to record and take pictures of things since, you know, it's hard to be in the moment. So I might as well archive it for the future. No, I totally get that, dude. I'm hella tired after work and I can't even sleep. It's a negative feedback loop, man. It just gets worse and worse and worse and worse until I just feel like shit. I guess the weekend will come and I'll get my sleep in and whatnot, but, you know, you never really recover, right? Sorry to hear about that, though. Hope things get better. It'll probably get worse, though. I'll pass on the drinks, though, but thanks. So there's this guy that showed up on Tucker Carlson. Well, like, not him, but a picture of one of his diagrams. His name is Nick Land, and he's, like, totally alt-right, but he wasn't always. It's a whole thing, whatever, but... like, he also wrote about raves, like Fisher did. It was in an earlier essay called No Future, where he kind of said the rave is human extinction made available as a dance floor, which, to be honest, I can 100% get behind, because, like, I guess I don't really want to be anything either. It's kind of like a suicidal impulse there to be subservient to technology, I guess is the best way I could put it. Now, like, I guess you call that depersonalization, right? Like, you don't want to be anything, kind of like that scene in Evangelion, the movie, the final one, not the rebuild films. You know, the time with Evangelion and Nick Land. This is kind of where like my theory that all philosophers are secretly Chinibu comes into play. You know, it's just really cool sounding, despite every other thing that comes along with it. Even the theorizing, it's just a cool thing to think and believe and say, and I can get behind it. But the idea is you kind of stop being a person and join in on this collective desiring machine, kind of like Fisher, but you know, considering Land's later beliefs. It's glorifying the other for its chance and horror instead of emancipation. It's something to think about, you know? Electronic music is a future type shit. Yeah, I talked about all of that. I'm like, I mean, I guess I can understand it. You don't really have to experience that stuff to write them down, I think. But like, I came here to see if I was missing something, and I don't know. I guess I'm just too in my head. Yeah. That's right. So like a rave is supposed to be this moment of collective joy. It eventually stops being that. It's hard to say why. I guess like you can't really pin it to a specific time, other than like you give it like a ton of space to open it. But then there's kind of no reason to even like try to chronologize it at all. It just kind of happens, right? But like that panel that I mentioned, it's basically that. It kind of stops being that collective joy, the communization of affect. Now Death of the Rave is a really eye-catching phrase, but it's also like super cynical. But you know, I think I can understand it a bit. Something about etiquette dying out and hedonism taking center stage. You know, it's sort of, you could kind of tell, you know, things kind of suck, and you kind of lose a sense of just like you're in this place, and there's these other people, and you know, you're all kind of melding together. You know, like Simon Reynolds, the Generation Ecstasy, I think that's the name. He kind of talks about like, you know, being a cog in like this electrifying machine. You know, you lose that. You start to wonder what's left. You start to wonder what's left, you know. But I think I'd cling on to this feeling in even better circumstances. Futurism, Juan. But I'm sure you don't need me to tell you this. Hey, nice talking. I'm gonna leave early. Nah, I just want to save some time. You can tell me about the after show anyways. Take care.
Why did you film that?
I'm not sure. It felt important at the time.
Your footage here slowly pans to the ceiling.
I didn't want to record anyone's faces.
Do you remember what Gerhard said?
Yes.
Tell me.
I'm an eye. A mechanical eye. I, the machine, show you a world the only way I can see it.
He's created an online shrine for the inked superhero, and he's constantly searching for new information to add.
朝8時の秋葉原に来ています。ご覧ください。通勤のサラリーマンを横目にですね。
気分を変えよ。
ライジングフォームだ。Let's go!
Hopefully I don't come off too smug. I'm insecure about stuff like that. Anyways, there's an important thread to discuss in the otaku scene. It's a small one, something microscopic to the vast world of information games and digital flows. Something I like to call the haunted otaku, since, well, it's eye-catching and a succinct way to describe what I mean. It goes a bit like this. In Akihabara, circa 2007, a chorus of voices echoed throughout the electric town. Let me keep my Haruhi, a diverse assembly of men and women, young and old, collectively known as the Revolutionary Moe Advocates Alliance, had protested down the streets of Akihabara. Clad in colorful anime costumes and various popular internet memes from that era, they marched with vigor and passion. Their well-practiced slogans and anti-songs resonated through their haven. This was a protest against anti-otaku hegemony. The battle was won, but at what cost? Akihabara, this site for the otaku's birth, lives on and is still regarded as the place to be, especially in the eyes of foreigners. There are still vertical shopping centers, eroge, and enough collab cafes to bring you back, but nowadays it's a bit different. It's an incredibly dumb phrase to use, but I think it works fine here. Akihabara lost its soul. But that soul haunts the world, the specter of the otaku. See what I did there? Otakus live and die on references and citations, like, yeah, but moving on.
Listen here, funny man. You're not funny.
Now, I'd hate to point fingers at specific image boards or whatever you might call a Twitter click. It's hard to explain even what an otaku is, let alone try and categorize a particular subjectification that arises within these decentralized networks, that of haunted otaku. So the best thing I can do is talk badly on an anime that holds characteristics of this flavor of anime conservatism. Magical Destroyers. Now, originally I wrote a review on this. It's gone, and it's probably gonna be gone forever, which is good because it really sucked. I think Jun Inagawa is a nepo baby hack. The show was vapid and somehow makes otaku even more infantile, and the grand tale, apparently hinting at a sequel, was evident of a brainworm that seems to permeate otaku spaces. One that wishes to rekindle the flames. A revolutionary otaku subject, one remit in oppression for 2D love. The problems with the show are numerous, from animation quality being subpar at times, despite a few pretty transformation spectacles, and how the show attempts an emotional impulse without really earning its stripes. But the main problem is more metatextual than anything else. The narrative it sets out is almost scenic in the zero-sum game the otaku plays. To keep it short, and I do think it's worth watching, the shorthand way to explain what it is: Akihabara is dismantled by an organization hell-bent on the destruction of otaku culture. Otaku materials are held captive. Otaku are also held captive. This organization has more or less successfully burned out the otaku spirit, yada yada. Now, eventually, the materialized construct of the oppression, Shogun, kills the otaku hero, but now he'll live on as a martyr, again, rekindling the flame of otaku revolution. The commonplace etymology of the otaku is found in the otaku killer's national coverage. Before then, otaku were mainly referred to as maniacs, and during this time, there was an oppression against otaku as an idea and group of people, based on the killing, because they labeled them as the otaku killer. Now, to kind of put this into perspective, think of Jack Thompson's crusade against video games in America, but for anime nerds. You can see the seriousness in how otaku gets discussed as a question of identity and non-normative subjects in this kind of literature. The Moe Manifesto, Otaku Spaces, to an extent, Otsuka Eiji's work, and I guess Akio Nakamura, all the people, right? All those people. The haunted otaku cannot help but mourn the past, to the point that its corpse is, well, paraded around like a skin suit. The shining ideal of the anime convention goer buying eroge figures at an upcharge. A fringe assembly of nerds and outcasts parading around places of vulgar fetishes, niche media, and explicit love for the cybernetic culture that would eventually dominate consumers. Think of like Genshin Impact. Yeah. The revolutionary otaku was animated by the fantasy of the new. The haunted otaku is animated by the fantasy of having once been new. And, well, the future is never as bright as it seems. Nowadays, anyone really goes to these places because through the great force of capital, everything including its contradictions and the plunge into the depths, and sold at an upcharge again. Or to put it plainly, otaku is pretty normal nowadays, but a certain aspect of it still rots in a dark corner. A part of otaku that cannot help but carry its original sins. A video by Pause and Select titled Akihabara Death and Rebirth is an adaptation of Patrick W. Galbraith's Otaku and the Struggle for Imagination. The book itself is historical geographic analysis of anime, its consumers, the vast shifts in ideology, and it's ultimately a critique of their government's plan towards a cool future. See what I did there? Yeah. Cool Japan, it's a whole thing. Moon Channel did a video on that. I don't want to end up like Moon Channel. But anyways, the book has many upsides, being a pretty useful text and understanding some of the retrograde concepts that dominated early Japanese nerd studies, but fails in various aspects. An academic review nails this problem. Galbraith quotes Watanabe Akio, "If these games come out into the open, we can't moe." Did I fuck up on the script? Give me a second. I'm gonna check up my university's database again and see if it's actually what that says. Okay, yeah, he actually does say that. So in fact, I was right. Okay. Galbraith quotes Watanabe Akio, "If these games come out into the open, we can't moe," he said, flustered but adamant. "We can't moe. If otaku culture is too open, then the power of imagination will decline." Here, Watanabe identifies the perceived problem of popular culture that Cool Japan, which popularizes the Baishoujo culture, thus makes it less edgy. I'm having trouble reading this. Why is it written like this? Like, my script isn't great throughout this entire video either, but like, less desirable to those whom the transgressive nature is the point. There is a zero-sum system to this imagination, described by the book as alternative social worlds that are relative and dependent on the existence of a mainstream. This is a problem attributed to Watanabe more than Galbraith. Obviously, he's not the one who really said it, but it is also his book. So, the issue of the rather vulgar, as in creepy, gatekeeping imagined to keep the culture leads to an ideology that is outdated in the vastly different cultural habitat that the otaku reside in. It cannot help but undermine the changes and shifts the culture has had today, leading to logic that simply reaffirms things that, well, hasn't been for a while. You'd have to read in between the lines here a bit to gain a critical understanding of the text beyond its history, but the book is simply the venue that the video wished to vent in. The video is more focused on the lost culture of the otaku, the positive readings of anime, end of early maid culture, and the changing inflection on consumer taste. And yet, another sudden, but never sudden change in environment as perceived by the Obachan's distaste for the district's sudden disappearance in their territory. This video clarifies the subset of beliefs that haunt the otaku, the hallucination of the past and the constant adding to it in the attempts to retain a previously held position. For something to be alive, it shouldn't have supplements to bolster its deflated attributes like an industry. It has to be alive and productive.
Does that have to do with anything, bitch?
There's no need to point at anything in specific here. So, imagine a series with a loner protagonist who, after a traumatic moment, i.e. being called creepy while performing Shinibiu, continues their next chapter of school life as a normal person. Things go well until a new exchange student appears, a girl from Germany. This girl must sit next to the main character, and let's just say he's a huge fan of diary and German military supplies too. And she begins to change his life. The plot will then revolve around the eternal return of school life, the MC's growth back into his quote-unquote true self, and eventually the author will move on to another project. Why do you think manga in this vein hardly ever comes to a conclusion? It doesn't want one. We also don't want one. If we let things properly rot to time, this will really be the final end. The structure of anime culture at large remains cooed by the sweet hums of school life, an eternal coming-of-age story. It's symptomatic of how culture operates at every level. We don't even need to directly interrogate the consumer, as it's far too easy to point at the surface and recognize these details themselves. And it should be reorganized to sustain in our zeitgeist. This is an aspect of all cultures, as per some basic evolutionary Darwinism, but instead, the visionary future for the otaku, the haunted otaku, must constantly reiterate, remember, and never forget about the database elements it uses. It differs in recognizing the inherent flows of digital media, but it still clings onto the belief that undermines the thesis itself. The thesis being that anime therefore creates new meaning by combining signifiers without a traditional chain of recognition. This is the contradictory bypass of the culture itself. The retrograde understanding for a culture that's current, constantly in flux, and more or less operates without us at all. The practice of otaku has seen major growth through the digital natives, but there is a thread that must be cut if there are to be any changes for the future. Otaku culture has already died, so let us mourn this and find new weapons to tinker with. Otomad consciousness. Also, go read my Otaku maxing manifesto. I wrote that right after I typed up this script. Yeah.
Are you still an otaku?
I don't know. What else could I be?
I think it's fine not to be anything at all.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I don't really think it's up to me.
Doesn't that defeat the purpose?
Sure, then I guess I'm complicit here. Anyways, I have to finish moping around. It's Christmas.
How long have we been talking?
A little less than an hour?
Take your time. We're almost done.
Yeah, I know. I still have to do my Christmas ritual.
What's different this time?
Nothing, I guess. My coworkers asked if I could come to some party to be a photographer. Not sure why. I kind of suck at it, but I do own a camera.
You should.
I don't know. I have to spend time otaku maxing, which includes finishing art machines. You know, I took 2 weeks off of work to finish this video, and I've only flipped through a few pages. I've got time, but I don't want to waste any.
I see.
Fine, I'll go. Can I ask you something?
What is it?
The televisions at restaurants never seem to play ads.
That's not a question.
Right. Sorry.
It's strange, isn't it? They never cut away from the gut-wrenching game shows and soul-crushing sports. It's like they exist outside of time, or at least outside of commerce. Even though they're in the most commercial space available, a space literally dedicated to sell something.
You sound like me.
I know.